She boarded that private yacht thinking she was stepping into luxury, but instead, she sailed straight into a nightmare. She believed she was securing the life she always dreamed of: wealth, status, freedom from the struggles she'd never admit out loud. But in the shadows of Dubai's glamour, some men do not see women as guests. They see them as targets. This is the story of a bride-to-be, torn between loyalty and temptation, who accepted one invitation too many. A story of predators who operated behind wealth, power, and secrecy. A story where her silence, her choices, and her secrets created the perfect storm. She entered the yacht feeling all excited. What she saw inside the yacht made her realize there is no going back for her. Only a miracle could save her. Welcome to True Crime Story HQ. Thanks to all my viewers and subscribers for your support. Stay tuned for daily true crime updates. Don't forget to subscribe. Kennedy Simone Washington was born in Atlanta in July 1996 to Dennis and Patricia Washington, a working-class family where every dollar mattered. Dennis worked as an automotive technician. Patricia taught second grade at Martin Luther King Elementary. They were good people doing honest work, but in Kennedy's eyes, honest work was never enough. From childhood, Kennedy lived in magazine pages. Vogue and Harper's Bazaar pulled from library donation bins, studying photographs like blueprints to a different life. She didn't just want to look at luxury. She wanted to live it. Her mother would find her lost in images of things they couldn't afford, offering gentle words about inner beauty and hard work. Kennedy would smile and nod, already calculating the distance between where she was and where she wanted to be. High school revealed the gap between ambition and reality. She watched wealthy classmates move through life with effortless ease. No worries about class trips, prom dresses, or college applications. Kennedy learned to perform, to curate an image more polished than her circumstances. She worked constantly, saving not for college, but for the appearance of success. By graduation, she'd mastered looking like she belonged in rooms she couldn't afford to enter, a skill that would become dangerous. Georgia State University accepted Kennedy in 2014. She chose marketing, believing it promised the lifestyle she craved: creativity, connections, high-end clients, networking events. But college brought debt. When she graduated in May 2018, Kennedy carried $67,000 in student loans. Her parents beamed with pride. Their daughter, the first college graduate in the family. Kennedy smiled for photos while realizing this achievement had buried her before adult life began. She owed more than her father made in 18 months, and the jobs waiting offered not freedom, but years of payments and deferred dreams. The Atlanta marketing scene was brutal. Kennedy landed a junior coordinator position at $42,000 annually, a victory that felt like betrayal. After taxes, rent with 2 roommates, loan payments, car, insurance, groceries, phone, she had almost nothing. Her bank account hovered in the low hundreds. The life she'd imagined remained impossibly distant. Her co-workers seemed content with modest apartments and split checks, but Kennedy felt suffocated. She hadn't accumulated massive debt just to live paycheck to paycheck like her parents. Instagram became her stage. She built 52,000 followers watching a carefully constructed life. Outfits bought and returned, borrowed designer bags, cocktails at upscale bars nursing one drink for 2 hours. Every image communicated success and access. Brands sent free products. The validation felt real. But the gap between image and reality gnawed constantly. She'd post luxury restaurant photos, then eat leftover rice. She'd showcase weekend getaways that were afternoon photo shoots at hotel pools she wasn't staying at. The performance exhausted her, but stopping meant admitting defeat, that she was ordinary, struggling, trapped in the same constraints that had defined her childhood. Everything shifted at a Buckhead influencer event in spring 2019. Kennedy wore a dress she couldn't afford, networking desperately. The venue was a restored mansion, marble, chandeliers, champagne, art-quality hors d'oeuvres. She worked the room, exchanging handles, playing the game. Then she saw them, women who didn't perform because they simply were. They wore wealth like a second skin, discussing European vacations and investment properties with casual ease. One woman, Vanessa, carrying a Birkin bag Kennedy recognized from teenage magazines, assessed her and leaned in. "You're beautiful, and you're smart, honey. In this city, that's currency, if you know how to spend it." Kennedy laughed it off, but the words echoed during commutes, lunch breaks, sleepless nights with overdrawn accounts. Beauty and intelligence as currency. She had both. The question was whether she'd spend them. At 23, Kennedy realized the rules: work hard, stay honest, climb slowly, were for people who could afford to wait. She couldn't. Debt grew faster than salary. Instagram followers expected a lifestyle she couldn't maintain. College friends were getting engaged to wealthy men, planning weddings she'd never afford, posting vacation photos she'd never take. Every day felt like falling behind while pretending to move forward. The exhaustion of the illusion was unbearable. Something had to change, and Kennedy was increasingly willing to consider options she'd once thought beneath her. What she didn't know: desperation makes you visible to predators. Halfway around the world, men with money and dark intentions were watching women exactly like her, waiting for the moment when need would override caution and opportunity would look like rescue. Before we continue, subscribe, share this, because what happens next needs to be heard. Terrence T.J. met Kennedy Washington in January 2018 at a birthday party in East Atlanta. He had a Georgia Tech computer science degree and worked at a tech startup. Inconsistent paychecks, long hours, big promises. TJ was smart, funny, present in ways Kennedy hadn't experienced. He listened, remembered details, and asked follow-up questions. They made it official that month. For 8 months, Kennedy believed love could be enough. They explored Atlanta on budgets, cooked together, talked about possible futures. TJ sketched business ideas on napkins with infectious optimism, and Kennedy would believe for whole hours they could build something together. Financial reality crushed optimism by late 2018. TJ's startup was failing. Paychecks became sporadic. Kennedy watched friends post engagements and honeymoons, while the gap between what she had and wanted became unbearable. In September, she met Devin, a Miami club promoter with designer everything and a Range Rover. Kennedy told TJ she needed space, then spent 4 months in what felt more like a transaction than romance. Devin bought her clothes, flew her to Miami. She convinced herself this was growth, what mature women did. The illusion shattered in December when she found him with 2 other women. Kennedy flew back Christmas Eve, showed up at TJ's door New Year's Day, and fell apart. He held her without questions. "I'm just glad you're home," he said. His friends thought he was crazy. TJ believed in second chances. Their second phase ran through 2019 and into 2020. Closer, having survived a breakup, but Kennedy's resentment grew invisible then everywhere. Her college roommate got engaged to a corporate lawyer, planning a $30,000 Savannah wedding. Instagram showed former classmates honeymooning in Bali, buying Buckhead houses, driving cars worth more than TJ's annual income. Kennedy loved TJ, but love felt like a luxury when packaged with his struggling freelance income and eternal optimism. March 2020 brought pandemic lockdown and a message from Marcus, a New York private equity professional. Through video calls and late-night texts, Kennedy convinced herself she was leaving TJ for Manhattan penthouses and Hampton weekends. She broke the news over FaceTime, watched his face crumble through a screen. 8 weeks later, Marcus ghosted her. After 3 days in bed, humiliated again, she found TJ's text. "I heard what happened. I'm here if you need me." TJ took her back in June 2020. No celebration, just quiet acceptance. His friends stopped commenting. His mother stopped asking. Through late 2020 and 2021, TJ built something real with his freelance business, landing better clients, charging higher rates, climbing towards stability. But Kennedy's impatience had calcified. She wanted the finish line, not the journey. July 2022, she met sports agent Darnell at a networking event. This time, she didn't bother breaking up with TJ first. For 4 months, Kennedy maintained both relationships, claiming she was working late when she was in hotel rooms with a married man. The affair ended explosively in November when Darnell's wife showed up at Kennedy's workplace with a lawyer. Kennedy's boss suggested she take a week off to handle personal business. That night, she sat outside TJ's apartment for 2 hours before finally knocking. TJ opened the door already knowing. His mother had called, his sister had seen posts, friends had sent evidence. When Kennedy cried and begged for another chance, TJ stepped aside and let her in. By November 2022, TJ's family had reached their limit. His mother said Kennedy was using him. His sister refused to be in the same room with her. His best friend stopped calling, unable to watch the cycle continue. TJ heard it all, then stayed with Kennedy anyway. Dr. Michelle Chen, a behavioral psychologist, explains, Kennedy believed her worth was tied to financial success and men who could provide it. Each time those relationships failed, TJ's acceptance reinforced that she could continue without real consequences. TJ confused unconditional love with unconditional tolerance, not understanding that real love sometimes means boundaries. Kennedy's logic was simple and devastating. TJ always forgave her, which meant he always would. His love was the constant, while she chased everything else. She genuinely believed always coming back honored their relationship, never understanding she was destroying the man who loved her most. New Year's Eve 2023, TJ rented a midtown rooftop, invited 150 people, and at midnight proposed with a ring he'd saved 8 months to buy. Kennedy froze, aware of every phone camera, every expectant face. She couldn't say no. Not with his mother crying happy tears, his sister filming, friends squealing. She couldn't explain she'd been planning to end things. So Kennedy said yes. The Instagram post got 14,000 likes, 600 congratulations. Inside, something cold whispered she'd agreed to a life she didn't want. She had 4 months to either embrace reality or fund the fantasy. That night, Kennedy made a decision that would cost her everything. She would find the money herself, no matter what it took. The engagement announcement went live January 2, 2024, with a professional photo shoot Kennedy insisted on. Despite TJ's protest, they'd just gotten engaged 12 hours earlier. She paid a photographer $200 she didn't have for 3 hours of perfect shots. The caption read, "He asked. I said yes, and I can't wait to marry my best friend on May 20th, 2024. May 20th, 4 months away. That evening, TJ sat down with a notebook and calculator ready to plan. He'd been saving, he told her proudly. $12,000 for their entire wedding. Venue, food, photographer, dress, suit, flowers, everything. He slid the notebook across with a smile that said he'd done something wonderful. Kennedy stared at those numbers like a terminal diagnosis. $12,000 wouldn't cover the wedding Kennedy envisioned. The venues she wanted, places that looked good on Instagram, started at $20,000 just for space rental. The Georgian Terrace required a minimum $45,000 for her imagined guest count of 400. She wanted a Vera Wang dress at $15,000, a Turks and Caicos bachelorette weekend for $8,000, a celebrity DJ for $10,000, a Bora Bora honeymoon, conservative estimate, $75,000 minimum. TJ's $12,000 represented 16% of what she needed. Kennedy looked at him and said, "This is great, babe. This is such a good start. I'll handle the rest through my side projects." TJ's face lit up with relief. Kennedy felt something inside turn to ice. January bled into February. Kennedy's desperation took on a frantic, hidden quality. She reached out to ex-boyfriends, the wealthy ones who'd taken her to nice dinners and talked about investment portfolios. Devin from Miami didn't respond. Marcus from New York had blocked her number. Darnell sent back, "My wife has a lawyer. Don't contact me again." Every door stayed closed. Kennedy realized these men had never taken her seriously. She'd been temporary entertainment, easily replaced, quickly forgotten. By mid-February, Kennedy had $23,000 in credit card debt across 4 cards, playing a dangerous game of balance transfers and minimum payments. She'd put down deposits on the venue, photographer, dress, all charged to plastic while frantically searching for solutions. Her student loans sat at $67,000, accumulating interest. Her $42,000 salary couldn't begin to address the hole she'd dug. She'd lie awake at 3 a.m. doing math that never worked, seeing no way forward except to find money from somewhere, anywhere, someone. TJ tried to help by suggesting solutions that broke Kennedy's heart. Late February, he proposed a courthouse wedding. Just them, parents, closest friends, maybe 20 people, and putting the $12,000 toward a house down payment instead. Kennedy's response came out colder than intended. "I'm not getting married at a courthouse like we're ashamed of it. I've been planning this wedding since I was a kid." TJ backed off immediately, apologizing. Kennedy felt guilt and resentment that made her want to scream. She started lying more deliberately, claiming freelance social media consulting work, brand promotions, a side hustle taking off. TJ believed her because TJ always believed her. The truth was she wasn't making extra money. She was spending more to maintain the Instagram illusion, attracting attention from someone with money who might offer a way out. Mid-February brought a fatal shift in Kennedy's online behavior. She started spending hours on luxury lifestyle forums, reading threads about women who'd traveled to Dubai and Monaco with wealthy men who paid for everything. The language was coded: arrangements, mutually beneficial relationships, generous mentors. But Kennedy understood. She joined private Facebook groups like Elite Connections, spaces where women traded advice about meeting rich men and negotiating terms. Kennedy told herself she was just researching, exploring options. She'd scroll through posts about Maldives trips and monthly allowances exceeding her annual salary, feeling envy, hope, and unacknowledged shame. Her Instagram posts took on a more provocative edge: more skin, more luxury brands, suggestive captions about knowing her worth. Her followers jumped from 52,000 to 60,000. Men's profiles filled her comments and DMs. "You're beautiful. I'd love to get to know you." The algorithm started showing Kennedy content she hadn't directly searched for. Ads for sugar baby matching sites, suggested groups about arrangement relationships, articles about women marrying billionaires. Kennedy clicked everything, absorbed everything. She learned the terminology. PPM meant pay per meet. Allowance meant monthly payments. SD and SB, sugar daddy and sugar baby. Atlanta arrangements ranged from $2,000 to $5,000 monthly. The women who made the most were willing to travel internationally: Dubai, Monaco, the Caribbean, where American laws didn't apply. Kennedy told herself she was just gathering information. This wasn't sex work, because it wasn't street corners or shady websites. This was networking, leveraging assets, what Vanessa had meant about beauty and intelligence being currency. February 19th, 11:47 p.m., a direct message arrived from a verified account with 2.3 million followers: Sheikh Rashid Al Maktoum. The message was simple, respectful. "Good evening, Kennedy. I've been following your content. I'm impressed by your sophistication and intelligence. I'm based in Dubai and interested in connecting with exceptional women for genuine companionship and mutually beneficial arrangements." Kennedy's heart pounded. She scrolled through photos of yachts, penthouses, luxury cars. The blue verification checkmark sat like a stamp of legitimacy. Kennedy looked at her calendar. May 20th, marked in red. 12 weeks until her wedding. 12 weeks to find the money. Before she could think too much, Kennedy typed back, "Hello. And if you're still here, still listening to Kennedy's story, drop your location in the comments. Let me see how far this truth is traveling. Type, 'I'm still here,' so I know who's brave enough to stay for what comes next. Because what you're about to hear gets darker before it gets better." February 19th, 2024, 3 months until Kennedy's wedding. A stranger with a blue checkmark offered her a lifeline that looked like salvation, but was actually a noose. Kennedy sat on her bed, laptop open to a nauseating spreadsheet of wedding expenses, when the Instagram notification lit up. Sheikh Rashid Al Maktoum had replied, "Kennedy, thank you for responding. I don't often reach out like this, but your profile suggests a woman of substance and ambition. I'd like to learn more. About your goals, your dreams, what drives someone as clearly talented as yourself. It was flattery, but intelligent flattery, that acknowledged her as more than attractive. They messaged for over an hour. When Kennedy put her phone down at 1:30 a.m., she felt something she hadn't felt in months: hope. The first week established a pattern Kennedy found exciting and surreal. Rashid messaged daily, sometimes multiple times, with photographs that looked like advertisements for wealth. Him boarding a private jet, off to London for meetings, a massive white yacht he claimed was his, wire transfer screenshots, 100,000, 300,000, all implying this was normal. The message underneath every image was clear: I have resources beyond your imagination. Kennedy checked her phone constantly, feeling a thrill every time his profile appeared. TJ would sit right beside her on the couch while Kennedy had an entirely separate conversation with a man 7,000 miles away, offering everything TJ couldn't provide. The guilt flickered occasionally, but Kennedy had gotten very good at compartmentalizing. Week 2 brought a shift to honest conversation, or what appeared to be. February 26th, Rashid sent a longer message Kennedy read 3 times. I want to be transparent. I'm married. I have a traditional family in the Emirates, and I honor those commitments. But I maintain a Western perspective on companionship. My culture allows for certain arrangements that American culture might judge, but which I see as honest acknowledgement of human needs. I'm not seeking romance or emotional entanglement. I seek company from exceptional women who understand relationships can be mutually beneficial. I provide support, financial, professional, social, and in return, I enjoy companionship with women who appreciate the finer things and can engage intellectually at the highest levels. If this isn't something you're open to, we can part as friendly acquaintances. But if you're intrigued, I'd like to continue with full honesty. Kennedy stared at that message, heart racing. The rational part of her brain screamed warnings. He's married. This is an arrangement. He's essentially paying you. This crosses lines you swore you'd never cross. But the desperate part, drowning in debt and wedding pressure, whispered this was exactly what she needed. Kennedy typed and deleted 5 responses before settling on, I appreciate your honesty. I'm intrigued. Tell me more. Week 3 brought their first video call. Kennedy spent 2 hours preparing for 30 minutes that would fundamentally alter her perception. She told TJ she had a late client meeting and locked herself in her bedroom. When Rashid's face appeared March 4th at 9 p.m., Kennedy's breath caught. He looked exactly like his photos. Early 50s, distinguished salt and pepper hair, expensive white button-down. Behind him, floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the glittering Dubai skyline. His perfect English carried just a hint of accent. Kennedy, it's wonderful to see you. You're even more striking in real time. After small talk, Rashid steered toward the real purpose. Let me be very clear about what I'm proposing. I don't seek romantic commitment. I have that in my marriage. What I seek is intelligent companionship with exceptional women who understand that time and attention have value. I travel frequently and enjoy company that can move seamlessly through high-level social environments. Dinners with business associates, events where appearance matters, private time away from pressures. In return for your companionship and discretion, I provide financial support that reflects the value I place on your time. Kennedy's mouth went dry. What kind of financial support? Rashid smiled slightly, appreciating her directness. I typically provide $12,000 monthly. Additionally, I cover all expenses: travel, accommodations, wardrobe. I provide gifts, and I'm generous when someone has specific needs or goals. The expectation is complete discretion, availability when requested within reason, and companionship that makes my time enjoyable. The physical component we discuss as we get to know each other, but I expect attraction and chemistry to be genuine, not performative. Kennedy heard herself asking about logistics, and some distant part of her wondered when she'd stopped debating whether to do this and started negotiating terms. The internal calculation happened fast. $12,000 monthly, more than TJ made in a quarter. 3 months until her wedding meant $36,000, covering almost half the wedding she wanted. 6 months meant $72,000, more than her annual salary, life-changing money solving every financial problem. Kennedy's mind raced through justifications. This wasn't prostitution, it was companionship. Rich men had mistresses all the time. TJ had forgiven worse. This was temporary, a means to an end. She could compartmentalize. And honestly, after everything she'd already done to TJ, wouldn't he forgive this too if he found out? March 2nd, Kennedy sat in a Starbucks parking lot during lunch. Rashid had sent his final offer, 6-month arrangement, $12,000 monthly, first payment after their first in-person meeting. He wanted dinner in mid-March in Atlanta, then a weekend at one of his properties. I need your answer by the end of day. Kennedy thought about the venue deposit on her credit card, the dress with tags she couldn't remove, TJ's face showing her his $12,000 savings. At 1:47 p.m., Kennedy typed, "Rashid, I accept your offer. I'm ready to move forward. Let's schedule that dinner." She hit send before she could change her mind. That night she went home to TJ, kissed him hello, listened to him talk about a new client, and felt nothing except relief that in 6 months she'd have $72,000 and none of this would matter. What Kennedy didn't know, there would be no 6 months, no $72,000, and no future past a weekend in mid-March when she'd board a yacht in Dubai and never come home. March 9th, 2024, 10 days before the biggest mistake of Kennedy's life. At her desk, half focused on work, Rashid's message arrived at 10:23 a.m. "An opportunity I hope you'll consider." Kennedy glanced around before opening it. "I'm hosting an exclusive gathering next weekend, March 14th through 16th, on my yacht off the Dubai coast. Small group, accomplished guests, successful women I mentor, business associates. I'd love for you to join. First-class Delta travel, 5-star accommodation, plus $7,500 appearance fee for the weekend. Designer wardrobe prepared. I realize this is international travel and significant commitment, but this weekend could be transformative." Kennedy read it 3 times, heart pounding, already mentally rearranging her schedule before consciously deciding to say yes. Hesitation came in waves. This wasn't Atlanta dinner where she could leave if things felt wrong. This was international travel to a country where she knew no one, where she'd be completely dependent on Rashid, where American laws didn't apply. Kennedy had never left the United States. Her 3-year-old passport was obtained for a canceled Cancun trip she couldn't afford. Dubai was 7,000 miles away, 13 hours, a place she'd only seen in Instagram posts. This would be her first physical meeting with Rashid, which seemed backwards and dangerous. Plus, lying to TJ for an entire weekend during wedding planning. Kennedy spent lunch in her car, staring at Rashid's message, drafting and deleting responses. What pushed Kennedy to acceptance was Rashid's follow-up at 2:47 p.m., perfectly timed. "I understand this is a significant task. First, you won't be alone. Several other successful women will attend. Second, I'm arranging a professional photographer specializing in lifestyle content. The images could transform your social media presence. Third, this weekend serves as verification for our arrangement. I need to meet you to finalize banking details for your monthly allowance. After this weekend, if you decide this isn't for you, you'll still receive the appearance fee with no further obligation." Kennedy felt her resistance crumbling. Other women made it safer. A photographer meant usable content. At 3:15 p.m., Kennedy typed with trembling hands, "Rashid, I'm honored. I'd love to join you. Let's make the arrangements." The lie Kennedy constructed for TJ was elaborate but simple. March 9th evening, she came home with manufactured excitement. Her company had selected her for a leadership development retreat in Scottsdale, Arizona that weekend. Intensive 3-day program at a luxury resort. They only take 15 people. There's a strict no-phone policy, so I won't text much except early mornings or late nights. TJ pulled her into a hug, told her how proud he was, how this proved she was on track for bigger things. Kennedy let herself be held, feeling his genuine happiness, pushing down guilt by reminding herself this was for them, for their wedding. To seal the lie, Kennedy spent 2 hours creating a fake email from her supervisor with professional letterhead. TJ didn't ask to see it. TJ never asked. TJ believed Kennedy completely, without question, without possibility of doubt. March 13th morning, TJ drove Kennedy to the airport, hand on her knee, voice full of encouragement. They left early because Kennedy claimed she needed to check in for Scottsdale, but her Dubai flight wasn't until late afternoon. At departure drop-off, TJ got out to hug her goodbye. His parting words would echo in Kennedy's mind during her last moments. "This is amazing, babe. Go shine like I know you can. I'll be here planning our future. I love you so much. I'm so lucky you said yes to marrying me." Kennedy kissed him, told him she loved him too, and watched him drive away. The guilt hit her in a wave. Surrounded by families and couples traveling honestly for honest reasons, Kennedy felt like a fraud. But then she thought about the $7,500, about the first monthly allowance, about solving every financial problem. Kennedy took a selfie with the departures board showing Scottsdale flights, posted to Instagram. "Leadership retreat, here I come." Then walked to Delta counter to check in for a flight taking her 7,000 miles from everyone who loved her straight into the hands of men who'd been waiting for someone exactly like her. Kennedy had exactly one person who knew anything close to the truth. March 11th, she met Jasmine Rivera at Lenox Square Mall for lunch at Cheesecake Factory. Jasmine, best friend since Georgia State freshman year, came from money, understood Kennedy's ambitions without judging. The moment they sat down, Jasmine looked at Kennedy's face. "Okay, what's going on?" Kennedy took a breath. "I'm going to Dubai this weekend. I met someone online, a businessman, very wealthy. He's invited me to a networking event on his yacht. He's willing to pay me for my time, which could help with the wedding." Jasmine stared with concern and frustration. "Kennedy, what do you actually know about this man? Have you met him in person? What happens when you're on a yacht in international waters and you want to leave but can't?" Kennedy had answers prepared. Rashid was verified on Instagram, 2.3 million followers, blue checkmark, obviously legitimate. Other women would be there. She'd researched the yacht company. This was business networking at the highest level. Jasmine brought up rumors about a Houston girl who went to Dubai and went quiet. Kennedy brushed it off. "I'm not naive, Jazz. I've looked into everything. This is legitimate." The compromise. Kennedy would text Jasmine every day, multiple times, share her live location, send photos with identifiable details. "If anything feels wrong, anything, even just a gut feeling, you leave immediately. Call me, call the embassy, get yourself out. Your safety matters more than money or opportunity. Promise me, Kennedy." Kennedy promised, meaning it, fully believing she'd have agency to leave if things went wrong. Not understanding predators design their traps to remove that agency before victims realize they need it. Kennedy Washington spent the next 48 hours preparing for a trip she thought would solve all her problems, missing every warning sign. The yacht's engines rumbled to life at 10:15 p.m. March 15th, 2024. A low purr Kennedy felt through her heels before consciously registering what it meant. She was making small talk with a London real estate developer when the deck shifted beneath her feet. They were moving away from dock, away from land, away from any possibility of simply walking off this yacht. A crew member's voice over speakers. "Gentlemen and ladies, we embark on our evening cruise." Kennedy's stomach tightened. She found Rashid, tried to keep her voice casual, asking where exactly they were going. His smile never wavered. "Just a sunset cruise, my dear. We'll stay close to the coast." It was a reassuring answer that didn't actually answer her question. Rashid appeared with fresh champagne 20 minutes into their journey. The crystal glass caught deck lights. Dom Perignon, $300 or more. Rashid raised his glass, looked at Kennedy with intensity. "To beautiful Kennedy, to new beginnings, to courage, and to truth. May this weekend be transformative for you." Kennedy drank deeply because the champagne was excellent and because alcohol helped quiet persistent anxiety. Then Rashid asked the question that should have sent Kennedy running. "Tell me, Kennedy, does anyone know your precise location this weekend? I'm always curious about how my guests manage their discretion." Kennedy answered with what she thought was sophisticated worldliness. "I told people I'm traveling, but not specifics. Professional discretion. What happens in Dubai, stays in Dubai. She laughed lightly. What she didn't see was how Rashid's smile changed for a fraction of a second, warmth draining from his eyes and replaced by something cold before charm snapped back. Discretion. Yes, very wise. Within minutes, a crew member appeared with a tropical fruit cocktail, chef's specialty, garnished with pineapple and orchids. You must try it, Rashid said. The drink tasted sweet and exotic. Kennedy drank eagerly. The time was 10:45 p.m. Kennedy Washington had just sealed her fate without knowing it. Symptoms began at 11:05 p.m. Subtle at first. Kennedy felt warmth spreading through her body, pleasant tingling that started in her chest and radiated outward. But then warmth became numbness, fingers and toes going distant. Her vision started blurring at edges, deck lights developing halos. When she tried to set down her glass, she missed entirely, crystal shattering. The sound seemed far away. Her legs felt weak, knees going soft. Kennedy tried to walk, but her body wouldn't respond, movements clumsy and uncoordinated. She opened her mouth. Something wrong. I don't feel... The men around her didn't move to help, showed no surprise or concern. In the part of Kennedy's brain still functioning, a terrible realization began to form. Kennedy collapsed into a deck chair at 11:20 p.m., body no longer responding to desperate commands to stand, to run. Through chemical haze, she saw Rashid approaching and crouching beside her. The mask had dropped completely. His voice came clear and cold. You see, Kennedy, we provide a necessary service. We cleanse society of parasites. Women like you, gold diggers, liars, cheaters, frauds. You destroy good men. We are society's immune system. We eliminate the disease of feminine greed and deception. You chose this, Kennedy. You chose to betray your fiancé for money. Now you experience the consequences. Kennedy tried to protest. No, please. TJ, home. The mention of her fiancé made Rashid laugh without humor. TJ? Your fiancé? The man you're betraying for money right this moment? He deserves so much better than you. Consider this our gift to him. Freedom from your poison. We're actually doing him a favor. Other men began gathering around Kennedy's chair, faces swimming in and out of focus. Kennedy tried to scream, but the sound was weak, immediately swallowed by yacht engines and ocean and jazz music still playing. Rashid stood up, looked down at her one final time. Document everything. She needs to understand what she truly is before the end. Make sure she stays conscious as long as possible. Two crew members grabbed Kennedy under her arms and began dragging her toward stairs leading to lower deck. Kennedy's last view of night sky was stars wheeling above her, indifferent and distant, as she was taken into a soundproofed cabin. The timeline of Kennedy Washington's assault stretched from 11:30 p.m., March 15th through 5:30 a.m. March 16th, 2024. 6 hours of systematic brutality. Medical findings discovered during autopsy painted a picture of extreme violence. Severe anal tearing through rectal wall causing massive internal hemorrhaging. Vaginal tearing and internal organ damage. 3 broken ribs, fractured left cheekbone, ligature marks circling both wrists and ankles, bite marks covering breasts, shoulders, thighs. Forensic analysis identifying multiple different individuals. The drugs, GHB, Rohypnol, and ketamine, were calculated at dosages designed to keep victims semi-conscious, aware enough to experience terror and pain, but too impaired to fight. Kennedy drifted in and out of consciousness throughout the ordeal, experiencing assault in fragmentary bursts of lucidity that were worse than complete unconsciousness would have been. Around 5:15 a.m., during her last moments of consciousness, Kennedy's mind cleared just enough to form coherent thought. And what she thought about was TJ. The last morning she'd seen him, the way he'd hugged her at airport and told her he was proud of her. She wished she'd told him the truth, canceled this trip, chosen safety over luxury and love over ambition. She wished she'd never responded to that first Instagram message, never believed $12,000 was worth risking everything. In those final conscious moments, Kennedy Washington prayed for death to come quickly, prayed for forgiveness she feared she didn't deserve. Her prayer was answered at approximately 5:45 a.m., March 16, 2024, when a combination of trauma, blood loss, and drugs finally stopped her heart. The disposal happened at 7 a.m. as sun began rising over international waters. The yacht, positioned at GPS coordinates 25°18 NN, 56°22 E, 47 nautical miles from the nearest coast. The crew wrapped Kennedy's body, still warm, in industrial canvas weighted with marine-grade weights. They made a critical error in their measurements that would eventually lead to Kennedy's body surfacing 11 days later instead of remaining hidden forever. By 12:30 p.m. March 16th, the majesty of the sea was back in its slip, and the men who'd spent the night torturing and murdering Kennedy disembarked in casual clothes with designer sunglasses, laughing and discussing lunch plans. The yacht cleaning that followed was industrial and thorough, 4 hours pressure washing every surface with chemicals destroying biological evidence. The cameras that had recorded everything were backed up to encrypted servers, then wiped. Simultaneously, the digital erasure began. The Instagram account, Sheikh Rashid Al Maktoum, was deleted at 2:00 a.m. Est March 17th, while Kennedy's fiancé TJ slept peacefully in Atlanta, unaware the woman he loved was already dead and sinking toward the bottom of the Persian Gulf. The men went home to families, businesses, legitimate lives, secure in belief that wealth and careful planning had made them untouchable. They had no way of knowing Kennedy Washington had told her best friend just enough information to eventually unravel everything. Jasmine Rivera was expecting a text that would never come, and that absence would start a chain of events bringing down a murder ring that had operated with impunity for 5 years. Saturday, March 16, 2024, arrived in Atlanta with perfect spring weather. Terrence Brooks woke alone, reached for his phone, sent Kennedy a text. "Hope the retreat is amazing. Miss you." The message showed as delivered. TJ went about his Saturday: grocery shopping, freelance work, laundry. He texted Kennedy again in the afternoon, again that evening before bed. By Sunday morning, with still no responses, TJ felt the first whisper of concern but pushed it away. The retreat had a strict no-phone policy. She was busy. She'd respond when she had breaks. Sunday, March 17th, found TJ more actively monitoring his phone. By Sunday evening, his texts had taken on urgent quality. "Can't. Wait to see you tonight. What time does your flight land?" The message delivered, but never showed as read. Kennedy hadn't even opened her Messages app. That absence of the read receipt became the first concrete sign something might be wrong. Evening arrived March 17th with no word from Kennedy. TJ's concern crystallized into something sharper as the time when Kennedy should have been home came and went. He called her phone at 9 p.m. It rang once before going to voicemail. TJ left a message trying to sound calm. "Hey babe, just checking in. Call me when you land, okay? Love you." He called Delta Airlines customer service, gave Kennedy's name, and asked about flights from Scottsdale to Atlanta that evening. The representative came back after a long pause. "I'm sorry, sir. I'm not showing any reservation under that name. Are you sure she was flying Delta?" TJ felt his stomach drop. He spent the next 2 hours calling every major airline that flew the Scottsdale-Atlanta route. Each conversation ended the same way. No reservation, no record of Kennedy Washington as a passenger. TJ sat on his couch at midnight staring at his phone's tracking app. Kennedy's location services were turned off. Find My iPhone showed her device as offline. Fear settled into his chest like a physical weight. The sleepless night that followed was torture. TJ alternated between texting Kennedy's phone and calling it and checking social media. He pulled up Kennedy's Instagram. Her last story was still that Arizona sunset stock photo from Friday afternoon. Her account showed she'd been active Friday evening around 6:15 p.m. Eastern Time, but nothing since then. By the time weak morning light appeared, TJ had convinced himself she must be in trouble. He called her phone again at 6 a.m., straight to voicemail. His voice cracked. "Kennedy, I don't know what's going on, but I'm really worried now. Please call me. Please. I love you." Monday, March 18th arrived with TJ having barely slept. 36 hours had passed since Kennedy's last text. TJ waited until 9 a.m. when Kennedy's office would be open, called the main number, and asked to speak with her supervisor. When Carol answered, TJ explained he was Kennedy's fiancé trying to reach her about the leadership retreat. The pause lasted too long. What retreat? Kennedy took personal vacation days Friday through Monday. She submitted the request 2 weeks ago, said she had wedding planning things to handle. There's no company retreat happening. The words hit TJ like physical blows. Kennedy had lied. Not just a small lie, but an elaborate, detailed, documented lie involving fake emails and vacation days, and a completely fabricated story. TJ started making calls with increasing desperation. He called Kennedy's mother, Patricia, in Detroit. Patricia revealed Kennedy had never mentioned any work retreat, said nothing about being out of town. TJ spent Monday morning calling everyone in Kennedy's contact list: college roommates, sorority sisters, work friends, cousins. Each conversation followed the same pattern. No, they hadn't heard from Kennedy since before the weekend. By Monday evening, TJ had called every hospital in the Atlanta metro area asking about Jane Doe patients. Each time the answer was no. Kennedy's Instagram still showed last activity as Friday evening. Find My iPhone still showed Kennedy's phone as offline. TJ stared at the gray icon representing his fiancée's disconnected device and felt like he was staring into an abyss. By Tuesday, March 19th, 72 hours had passed since Kennedy's last contact with anyone. TJ knew with absolute certainty something catastrophically wrong had happened. He checked Kennedy's social media obsessively. Instagram showed Kennedy as last active at 6:15 p.m. Eastern Time, March 15th, which would have been after she supposedly arrived at the Scottsdale retreat during the time when she'd said there was no phone access. TJ did time zone math. 6:15 p.m. EST was 2:15 a.m. March 16th in Dubai, though he had no reason yet to connect Kennedy to Dubai. He tried to access Kennedy's bank account, but they'd never shared that information. He couldn't check credit cards, couldn't access email, couldn't trace her movements because Kennedy had kept all of that private and separate. Tuesday evening brought TJ to the edge of complete breakdown. His body ran on no sleep and minimal food. He'd been vomiting periodically since Monday, anxiety manifesting in physical symptoms. By Tuesday night he was shaking and feverish, unable to focus on anything except the certainty Kennedy was gone. His friends stopped by with food he couldn't eat. TJ's mother came from across town and found her son looking like he'd aged a decade in 3 days. She told him they needed to call the police, file a missing person report. At 11:47 p.m. Tuesday, March 19th, TJ sat on his couch with his mother on one side and his best friend Malcolm on the other and whispered, "What if she's dead? What if she's already gone and I'm sitting here waiting for someone who's never coming back?" His mother squeezed his hand. "Don't think like that, baby. We're going to find her." But all three of them felt the weight of what none wanted to acknowledge. That 72 hours was a lifetime in missing person cases. That the longer Kennedy stayed gone without contact, the more likely something irreversible had happened. That TJ might be waiting for a woman already beyond anyone's ability to save. Jasmine Rivera had been watching TJ's Facebook posts spiral from concern to panic to desperation over 5 days, and each update felt like a knife twisting, because she knew something that might help and couldn't decide whether telling would betray Kennedy or save her. Wednesday, March 20th, found Jasmine in her Houston apartment, staring at her phone, wrestling with a moral dilemma that had kept her awake 3 straight nights. She'd sent Kennedy 5 text messages since Friday, casual, check-ins at first, then increasingly worried questions, then desperate pleas for any sign she was okay. All 5 messages showed as delivered but unread. Jasmine had promised to respect Kennedy's privacy, but that promise assumed Kennedy would be fine, would be in contact, and would come home. The silence was wrong, fundamentally wrong. At 2:15 p.m. March 20th, Jasmine saw TJ's latest Facebook post, and the raw desperation finally broke through her indecision. TJ's post was public, painful to read. "Please, if anyone knows where Kennedy is, I'm begging you. I just need to know she's safe. If you have any information, please contact me or the Atlanta police. She's been missing for 5 days and I'm losing my mind. 73 comments in 15 minutes. Prayers, promises to share, expressions of shock. Jasmine read it 3 times, heart pounding, hands shaking. Her silence had shifted from protecting privacy to potentially costing Kennedy her life. If Kennedy was in trouble, and 5 days of complete silence suggested catastrophic trouble, then the information about Dubai and the Sheikh might be the only thread investigators could pull. Jasmine grabbed her phone, called TJ before she could second guess. When he answered on the first ring, voice hoarse and desperate. "Hello? Do you know something?" Jasmine said, "TJ, it's Jasmine. We need to talk, in person, now. I know where Kennedy really went." The silence lasted 3 seconds that felt like hours. Then TJ, "Where? When? I'll be there in 10 minutes. The Starbucks meeting happened at 3 p.m. Jasmine had never seen TJ look like this. 5 days of fear had carved hollows under his eyes, taken weight off his face. He sat down without ordering coffee, without small talk. "Tell me everything, right now." Jasmine took a breath. Kennedy wasn't at any retreat. She wasn't even in Arizona. She lied to you. She went to Dubai, the United Arab Emirates. She was meeting someone she'd connected with online, a wealthy man who'd promised her money and opportunities. TJ's face went through rapid expressions, confusion, anger, like he'd been punched. His voice came out strangled. Dubai? She went to fucking Dubai with some man she met online? Why? Jasmine pulled out her phone, showed TJ the screenshot she'd saved of Sheikh Rashid Al Maktoum's Instagram profile, a verified account with millions of followers, photos of jets and yachts. "His name is Rashid Al Maktoum. Kennedy showed me his profile 2 weeks ago. She said it was a networking opportunity, could help with career advancement and wedding expenses. He was hosting an event on his yacht, March 14th through 16th. She said there would be other successful women there, that it was legitimate networking, that she'd researched everything. The yacht company was called Majesty Maritime Charters. She was supposed to return Sunday the 17th. Obviously, she never came back." TJ stared at the screenshot, brain trying to integrate this new reality. "You're telling me Kennedy flew to Dubai to meet some rich man who promised her money? For what?" Jasmine hesitated, between complete honesty and preserving Kennedy's dignity. She said it was companionship, networking, being seen at events with wealthy people, a business arrangement, not romantic, not physical. I don't know if that was true or what she was telling herself to justify it. TJ's face crumbled as he connected dots. "The wedding," he whispered. "She was trying to get money for the wedding. She was going to sell herself to pay for the fucking wedding. I never wanted to be that expensive." The accuracy hit Jasmine like confirmation of everything she'd feared. TJ put his head in his hands, shoulders shaking. Jasmine gave him a moment before pushing forward. "TJ, I told her this was dangerous. I made her promise to text me every day, share her location, leave if anything felt wrong. She sent me one text Friday night saying she'd landed and everything was fine. I haven't heard from her since. 5 days of complete silence from Kennedy, who never goes more than 5 hours without checking her phone. Something's wrong. Something's really, really wrong." The fear in Jasmine's voice snapped TJ from his spiral of betrayal. His face shifted from hurt to determination. "You're right. We need to call the police. Right now. This is an international missing person case. She could be kidnapped, trafficked, hurt, anything." Together they left Starbucks and drove to Atlanta Police Department Zone 6 Precinct, arriving at 5:45 p.m. March 20th, 2024, 5 days after Kennedy's last text from Dubai and 4 days after she'd been murdered and thrown into the Persian Gulf. They were directed to Detective Shanice Williams in Missing Persons Unit. Detective Williams pulled out a missing person report form and began documenting everything, her demeanor shifting from routine to urgent as details accumulated. The information painted a picture that made Detective Williams's jaw tighten. Kennedy Simone Washington, 27 years old, black female, 5'7", 140 pounds, brown eyes, black hair with blonde highlights. Last known location, Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Last contact, March 15th at 7:15 p.m. Dubai time, text to Jasmine saying she'd arrived safely. Suspected contact, Sheikh Rashid Al Maktoum. Instagram verified account, Majesty Maritime Charters. Purpose, networking event on Yacht, March 14th or 16th. Expected return, Sunday. March 17th, never arrived. Kennedy had lied to fiancé and employer about the destination, suggesting she knew the trip was questionable. Jasmine provided the screenshot, but when Detective Williams tried pulling up the profile, the account had been deleted. The deletion timing was ominous. March 17th at 2 a.m. Est, exactly when Kennedy was supposed to return home. Detective Williams looked at TJ and Jasmine with an expression suggesting she'd seen cases like this before, and they rarely ended well. International jurisdiction makes this complicated, but we'll contact the FBI immediately. This is now a suspected international kidnapping or human trafficking case. You did the right thing coming here today. The FBI involvement began that evening. Special Agent Carmen Rodriguez from the FBI's Atlanta field office was assigned as lead investigator. By 9 p.m. March 20th, she was interviewing TJ and Jasmine. Agent Rodriguez explained Kennedy's case would require unprecedented international cooperation. Dubai was 7,000 miles away with completely different legal systems. The FBI would contact Interpol, who would issue a red notice for Kennedy. Interpol would contact UAE authorities and Dubai Police Department. The investigation over March 21st-25th was a masterclass in international bureaucracy and frustrating limitations. Interpol issued a red notice within 24 hours. Dubai police began a preliminary inquiry with Majesty Maritime Charters, a legitimate business, but no yacht named Majesty of the Sea in their fleet, no booking for March 14th to 16th, no employee named Rashid. The company suggested their name may have been fraudulently used. First dead end in what would become a series. The Instagram investigation proved revealing and frustrating. The account had been deleted March 17th at 2 a.m. EST. The FBI obtained an emergency court order, and Meta provided records. The account was created in August 2023, 7 months before Kennedy was contacted, suggesting long-term planning. Follower count grew from 0 to 2.3 million through purchased fake accounts. 91% were bots from click farms, purchased for roughly $18,000. The verification badge was fraudulently obtained through dark web service for $3,500. All photos were stolen from a legitimate Emirati businessman horrified when investigators contacted him. IP addresses showed VPN access from Dubai, London, Monaco, New York, Moscow, Geneva, impossible to trace to any single location. Emirates Airlines confirmed Kennedy was a passenger on flight EK-231 from Atlanta to Dubai March 14th, business class ticket purchased by a shell company. Airport surveillance showed Kennedy checking in alone, calm and excited, no distress. Dubai immigration confirmed Kennedy entered UAE March 15th at 6:55 p.m. The critical detail, no exit stamp. Kennedy never left the UAE officially. Dubai airport surveillance showed Kennedy meeting a driver with Washington on iPad, entering black Mercedes SUV. License plate traced to shell company with fake documents. The driver's face was partially obscured. The SUV left the airport heading northwest. Then Kennedy disappeared from every camera, every record, every database. Dead ends multiplied. TJ's deterioration was visible. He stopped working, lost weight, spent hours refreshing news sites. Sleep became impossible. Local Atlanta news picked up the story March 23rd. Kennedy's mother, Patricia, arrived from Detroit March 22nd, moved into TJ's apartment. Community response was overwhelming. Prayer vigils, social media campaigns, Find Kennedy trending. By March 25th, 10 days after Kennedy's last text, TJ sat with his mother, Jasmine, and Agent Rodriguez. He asked, "She's dead, isn't she? After this long, after all these dead ends, she's not coming home." Agent Rodriguez looked at TJ with professional compassion. "We're doing everything we can, but I won't lie. The longer someone is missing, especially internationally, the more difficult recovery becomes. You should prepare yourself for all possible outcomes. TJ nodded, not because he accepted what she was saying, but because he'd already known it, had felt it in his bones since Sunday, when Kennedy failed to come home. March 27, 2024 arrived in the Persian Gulf with pristine conditions, calm seas, clear visibility, perfect weather. The fishing vessel Sayyad al-Khalij, Gulf Hunter, left Fujairah port at 4:30 a.m. with a 5-man crew. By 5:45 a.m., 81 nautical miles off the Fujairah coast, Captain Mohammed al-Rashidi noticed birds circling 300 meters off starboard, behavior suggesting something substantial floating. Mohammed's first thought, debris from a shipping container, possibly worth salvaging. He adjusted course toward the birds. The distance closed, 300 meters to 200 to 100. Through early morning light, the crew could see the shape was too small to be a container, too irregular to be hull equipment. At 50 meters, crew member Farid grabbed binoculars. What he saw made him lower them with shaking hands. "Captain, I think it's a body, a person." The words hung in the salt air like something toxic. Captain Mohammed brought the vessel to within 10 meters. It was indeed a human body, female, floating face down, partially wrapped in deteriorated canvas, exposing bloated flesh. The body had been in water long enough for significant decomposition, for marine life to begin their work. 3 crew members turned away to vomit, while Captain Mohammed reached for the radio. The radio call went out at 5:52 a.m. "Coast Guard, this is Sayyad al-Khalij. We have discovered a body, human female, coordinates 25°31'N, 56D411E. The body is floating, partially wrapped in material, and appears to have been in water for an extended period. Requesting immediate assistance." The dispatcher instructed them to remain at location, not to touch the body, mark position with buoy, wait for response. The crew spent the next hour and 23 minutes floating near a dead woman none would ever forget, watching birds circle. Some prayed, whispering Quran verses. Captain Mohammed radioed his wife he'd be late. They'd found something terrible. The sun climbed higher, the beautiful morning feeling increasingly wrong. The UAE Coast Guard vessel Shaheen dispatched from Fujairah Naval Base at 7:15 a.m., reaching coordinates at 7:55 a.m. The team secured the scene, documenting everything before attempting recovery. 2 officers in protective suits entered the water with specialized equipment. What they found as they brought the body aboard made even seasoned personnel exchange grim looks. The canvas wrapping had partially deteriorated, but remained recognizable as industrial material. Weights were still attached with rope, showing someone knew what they were doing. The weights hadn't been sufficient. This victim had surfaced when she was supposed to stay hidden forever. Kennedy's condition after 12 days in salt water was exactly what forensic pathologists expected, and exactly as horrible. Significant decomposition accelerated by warm Gulf waters and marine life. The Coast Guard could see obvious trauma, positioning of limbs, visible injuries, fragments of expensive clothing suggesting she'd been dressed for an event. The commander's assessment was unequivocal. Homicide, wrapped and waited for disposal, circumstances screaming organized crime. The scene was photographed, GPS coordinates recorded, water samples collected. Kennedy's remains were placed in a body bag and transferred to the Shaheen's refrigerated storage. By 10:30 a.m., Kennedy Washington's body was being transported to Fujairah Forensic Medicine Department. Dr. Fatima al-Rashid had been a forensic pathologist for 15 years, trained in London and New York. Kennedy Washington's autopsy tested her professional detachment in ways she hadn't experienced in years. The examination began afternoon March 27th, continued through March 28th, requiring multiple sessions because documentation had to be meticulous and because Dr. al-Rashid needed breaks from the catalog of horrors. Preliminary findings: female, age 25 to 30, height 5'7", African descent, recent American-style dental work. Time of death: 11 to 12 days prior to recovery, placing death around March 15th or 16th. Cause of death: multiple contributing factors, massive hemorrhaging from sexual trauma, potential drowning, shock, blood loss. Dr. Al-Rashid noted every injury present was sufficient to cause death, accumulation of trauma indicating intentional torture. The evidence of prolonged sexual assault was so extreme it required consultation with colleagues. Severe anal tearing completely through the rectal wall, vaginal tearing and cervical trauma, multiple bite marks on breasts, shoulders, thighs, at least 8 to 10 different individuals based on dental patterns, ligature marks circling wrists and ankles, 3 broken ribs, fractured left cheekbone, defensive wounds on hands, broken fingernails, bruised knuckles. Kennedy had tried to fight despite being chemically incapacitated. Toxicology results. March 28th added premeditation. High concentrations of 3 drugs, GHB, Rohypnol, and ketamine. The combination was calculated to achieve maximum incapacitation while maintaining semi-consciousness. They wanted Kennedy awake enough to experience what was happening, but unable to fight. DNA extraction was remarkably successful. Foreign DNA from at least 12 to 15 different male individuals. Clothing fragments included expensive designer dresses. Jewelry still present. A Cartier love bracelet Dr. Al-Rashid carefully removed and photographed. March 28th brought the breakthrough. UAE authorities entered findings into Interpol's database. Black female, American, age 25 to 30, missing in UAE within the past 2 weeks. The system returned one result. Kennedy Simone Washington. Red notice issued March 21st by FBI Atlanta. All descriptors matching perfectly. By noon, March 28th, Special Agent Carmen Rodriguez was receiving the call she'd been dreading. UAE authorities requested dental records. Kennedy's dentist in Buckhead received an FBI request at 2 p.m. Atlanta time, March 28th, transmitted records within 2 hours. Dr. Hassan Khalid received records at 11:30 p.m. Dubai time, began analysis immediately, working through the night. March 29th, at 9 a.m. Dubai time, Dr. Khalid completed his analysis. The recovered body and Kennedy's dental records matched at 14 distinct points of comparison, leaving zero doubt. TJ provided a DNA sample in Atlanta March 29th. Kennedy's parents provided samples in Detroit. Rush processing was arranged. Results came back March 30th at 11 a.m. Dubai time. Kennedy's DNA matched her parents with 99.99% certainty. Official identification: Kennedy Simone Washington, deceased, cause of death homicide by aggravated sexual assault, torture, and murder. Estimated time of death: March 16, 2024, approximately 5 to 7 a.m. Dubai time. Someone had to tell Kennedy's family hope was officially over. March 31st at 3 a.m. Atlanta time, 16 days after Kennedy kissed TJ goodbye, Special Agent Carmen Rodriguez and Victim Services Specialist Michael Chen arrived at TJ's apartment. TJ was awake, as were Kennedy's parents, Patricia and Dennis. TJ opened the door, saw Agent Rodriguez's face, and knew immediately. They sat in TJ's living room. Agent Rodriguez spoke. "We have confirmed the identity of the body recovered in the United Arab Emirates on March 27th. It is Kennedy Washington. I'm deeply sorry." The silence lasted maybe 3 seconds. Then TJ made a sound that wasn't quite a word and wasn't quite a scream, collapsed from the couch onto the floor, body curling in on itself. Patricia fainted. Dennis caught his wife, his own face frozen in stoic shock. Agent Rodriguez provided what details she could while withholding graphic specifics. Kennedy's body found in ocean, clear evidence of assault. She died approximately 12 days ago. Multiple perpetrators involved in organized criminal operation. She explained Kennedy's remains would be repatriated once forensic examination completed. Victim Services would help coordinate funeral arrangements. The family's questions came between sobs. Did she suffer? How long? Who did this? Agent Rodriguez answered as gently as possible. We believe the assault was prolonged, but drugs in her system would have limited her awareness. We're working with international partners to identify and arrest everyone involved. The longest night of TJ's life stretched from 3 a.m. notification through dawn. Patricia regained consciousness on TJ's couch, reality crashing back in waves. Dennis sat rigid and silent. The three held each other, tried to breathe through knowledge Kennedy was dead, murdered, died in terror and pain 7,000 miles from home. TJ kept thinking about the last conversation, dropping Kennedy at the airport, telling her he was proud, couldn't wait for her to come home. She'd lied and he'd believed every word. He thought about the wedding that would never happen, children they'd never have, the ordinary, beautiful future stolen by men who believed themselves entitled to judge and execute a woman whose only crime was being desperate and making terrible choices. TJ sat on his living room floor as sun came up March 31st, 2024, understanding his life had been divided into before and after, that Kennedy Washington's murder had killed parts of him too. Outside, Atlanta woke to a normal Tuesday, and somewhere 7,000 miles away, men who'd tortured and murdered Kennedy were probably also having a normal day, believing they'd gotten away with it, not knowing yet that the body they'd disposed of had surfaced and been identified, and that everything they'd built was about to come crashing down. April 1st, 2024, marked Kennedy Washington's murder, transforming from a tragic individual case into one of the largest coordinated international law enforcement operations in recent history. The decision to form a joint task force came from the highest levels of UAE leadership after Dr. Fatima al-Rashid's autopsy report reached the Minister of Interior. By noon, Dubai time April 1st, 8 law enforcement agencies from 6 countries had committed personnel and resources to Operation Pearl, a name referencing both the Persian Gulf where Kennedy's body was found and the fake yacht company used to establish credibility with victims. Participating agencies represented unprecedented international cooperation: UAE State Security as lead agency, Dubai Police Major Crimes Unit, Interpol, FBI's International Operations and Cyber Divisions, U.S. State Department's Diplomatic Security Service, UK National Crime Agency, and Europol. Colonel Ahmed al-Mansouri was selected as lead investigator based on his 15-year UAE state security career, specializing in organized crime and human trafficking. Special Agent Carmen Rodriguez was designated American Liaison. The command center was established at Dubai Police Headquarters, accommodating 40-plus investigators, analysts, and support staff. By April 1st evening, secure communication channels were established, and the first briefing scheduled for 9 a.m. Dubai time April 2nd, 17 days after Kennedy boarded a yacht she'd never leave alive. The first official task force briefing April 2nd brought together investigators who'd been working different pieces independently. Resources allocated to Operation Pearl were essentially unlimited. The objective: identify every individual involved, apprehend them regardless of wealth or location, dismantle the entire organization, determine how many other victims existed. Colonel al-Mansouri stood before a wall covered in photographs, maps, timelines. We are not investigating a single murder. We are investigating a serial killing operation likely active for years. Kennedy Washington is one victim we know about. Our job is to find the others and ensure there are no more. The evidence review revealed the staggering digital information modern humans leave behind. Kennedy's complete digital footprint was subpoenaed through emergency court orders. AT&T provided complete phone records, every call, text, GPS location data. Meta turned over Kennedy's complete Instagram history, including all direct messages and deleted content. Gmail provided email access, including the fake email Kennedy created to convince TJ about the Arizona retreat. Apple's iCloud backups contained location history and app data, showing Kennedy's searches for Dubai safety, luxury yacht etiquette, and heartbreakingly, how to stay safe meeting someone from Instagram. The Instagram investigation consumed 3 FBI Cyber Division analysts for 72 hours. Meta provided the complete message thread between Kennedy and Sheikh Rashid Al Maktoum. 3 weeks of daily communication showing Kennedy being groomed with calculated precision. The photos posted to Rashid's account underwent reverse image search. Every photograph was traced to an actual Emirati businessman named Abdullah Hassan, who was horrified when investigators showed him his photos had been stolen to create a fake identity. The IP address analysis provided first concrete leads despite VPN usage. The FBI's cyber division found metadata leaks, traces of real IP addresses momentarily exposed when VPN connections briefly dropped. Analysis revealed the account had been accessed from multiple locations, numerous logins from Dubai's upscale areas, 23 logins from London's Mayfair and Knightsbridge, 8 logins from Monaco's Monte Carlo, brief connections from Moscow, scattered logins from New York, Geneva, and Paris. The discovery that sent shockwaves came April 5th, when analysts expanded their search beyond Rashid's account. FBI algorithms identified 47 additional Instagram accounts matching the same pattern: fraudulent verification badge, massive follower count with bot accounts, stolen profile photos. 47 accounts, each carefully constructed to appear as wealthy Middle Eastern or European men. Some accounts were still active, currently messaging young women with the same promises Rashid made to Kennedy. Others had been deleted on dates investigators cross-referenced with missing persons reports from a dozen countries. The pattern was undeniable and horrifying. This wasn't just Kennedy's killer, but a sophisticated operation that had been luring vulnerable women for at least a year and likely longer. The conclusion reached by the task force April 7th was documented in Colonel al-Mansouri's briefing to UAE and U.S. leadership. We are investigating a sophisticated catfishing operation run by an organized criminal network with significant financial resources and technical expertise. The operation targets vulnerable women using social media platforms, establishing elaborate false identities. The invitation to Dubai, and specifically to yachts in international waters, appears to be the standard method of isolating victims where territorial law enforcement has limited jurisdiction. We believe this operation has been active for multiple years, and Kennedy Washington is one of many victims. The briefing concluded with a request. Colonel al-Mansouri needed authority to investigate UAE's wealthiest residents, including those with political connections or royal family associations. The UAE Minister of Interior approved within 24 hours with a single directive: follow the evidence wherever it leads. No one is above justice. That authorization would prove crucial when investigators discovered that some of the men who'd tortured and murdered Kennedy Washington were exactly the kind of wealthy, connected individuals who typically considered themselves immune to consequences, and who were about to learn that even billionaires can be arrested when the evidence is overwhelming and the political will is present. April 8, 2024 brought the task force investigation into its most disturbing phase when Interpol's global database search revealed Kennedy Washington wasn't an isolated victim, but the latest casualty in a systematic killing operation claiming lives for years across multiple continents. The database search parameters: young women aged 20 to 35, disappearances involving luxury travel promises, social media contact with purportedly wealthy men, last known locations near the UAE, timeframe 2020-2024. When the search was executed at 11:47 a.m. Dubai time, the system returned 23 potential matches. 23 young women across 12 countries, all vanished under circumstances echoing Kennedy's case with terrifying similarity. All disappeared within 4 years, none found alive. The United States contributed 4 cases, including Kennedy. Brazil provided 5 matches: young women from São Paulo and Rio who'd traveled to Dubai for business opportunities before disappearing. The Philippines accounted for 3 cases: women contacted through Instagram by men promising modeling contracts or hospitality jobs. Thailand contributed 2 matches. Romania provided 4 cases authorities had suspected were human trafficking. Ukraine reported 3 missing women whose cases received minimal investigation. Colombia, Kenya, and South Africa each contributed cases, filed away as probable voluntary disappearances. The common elements across all 23 cases were so consistent they read like a victim selection checklist. Every single woman was between 22 and 32 years old. All had been contacted via social media by accounts presenting as wealthy Middle Eastern men with promises of mentorship, networking, financial support. All had been promised luxury travel, 5-star accommodations, designer wardrobes. The timeline revealed a seasonal pattern. Every single case occurred between March and October. Warm weather, months when yacht season was active in the Persian Gulf and Mediterranean. And most damning, none of the 23 women had been found alive. Kennedy was the first body to surface and be identified. The recovered bodies discovered between 2021 and 2024 suddenly took on new significance when investigators re-examined cold cases through Kennedy's murder lens. October 2021, female body found in Omani waters, ruled accidental drowning. The new autopsy revealed similar sexual trauma, chemical markers suggesting GHB and rohypnol, canvas wrapping fragments. March 2022, unidentified female body near Bahrain. July 2022, two female bodies discovered together in Egyptian Red Sea waters, both wrapped in the same industrial canvas found with Kennedy. November 2022, body found near Qatari waters. May 2023, body in UAE waters near Ras Al Khaimah, with injuries remarkably similar to Kennedy's. September 2023, three female bodies found within 48 hours, all in international waters between UAE and Iran, all wrapped in canvas, all waited for disposal. In total, 11 bodies recovered 2021-2024 showed patterns matching Kennedy's murder. DNA testing in April 2024 managed to identify 8 of the 11 bodies. 3 bodies remained unknown. The families located through DNA matching received devastating notifications across 7 countries during the second week of April. A mother in Manila learned her daughter hadn't abandoned the family, but had been murdered within days of arriving in Dubai. Parents in São Paulo discovered their daughter's silence hadn't been shame, but permanent silence of death. A boyfriend in Bucharest learned she'd never had the chance to return. The victim profiles revealed a disturbingly consistent pattern. Every identified victim had been financially struggling despite maintaining social media appearances of success, posting photos at nice restaurants while living paycheck to paycheck, showcasing borrowed designer items, drowning in debt. The gap between appearance and reality created vulnerability the perpetrators exploited brilliantly. All victims had been active on social media, with aspirational content signaling materialistic values. Every victim had been seeking networking opportunities with wealthy men, open to arrangements or mentorship with financial benefits. All had told lies about travel plans, just as Kennedy lied to TJ about Arizona. All victims had minimal family knowledge of true destinations. This isolation was part of the selection criteria. Perpetrators specifically targeted women whose absence wouldn't immediately trigger comprehensive missing persons investigations. The psychological profile developed by Dr. Rebecca Morrison, FBI behavioral analyst, described the perfect victim as women displaying outward confidence and ambition while experiencing internal financial desperation, active on social media in ways signaling materialistic values and openness to transactional relationships, geographically or emotionally isolated from strong support networks, and engaged in lifestyle choices involving secrecy or deception that would delay reporting if they disappeared. Dr. Morrison's report concluded with an observation that made the entire room go silent. April 12th. These women weren't targeted randomly. They were selected through a systematic process identifying specific vulnerabilities and exploiting them with professional precision. The perpetrators understood that society judges women who pursue wealth through relationships with men, and that judgment provides cover for murder because victims are seen as having made bad choices rather than as having been targeted by predators. Kennedy Washington fit their profile perfectly. And there are thousands of other women just like her on social media right now, completely unaware they're making themselves visible to predators who are watching and selecting their next victims. The realization that settled over the task force by mid-April, they weren't investigating a murder. They were investigating a serial killing operation that had claimed at least 11 confirmed victims and likely dozens more. Colonel Al-Mansouri stood before the evidence wall April 15th, looking at photographs of 11 dead women and 23 missing women. These men believe they're untouchable because they're wealthy. They believe they can murder women without consequences because they choose victims society doesn't automatically protect. They've been right for years. Our job is to prove them wrong. Find me these men. I don't care who they are, what they own, or who they're connected to. Find them, and we'll show them that murder is murder regardless of who the victim was or what choices she made. The hunt was officially on. And somewhere in Dubai or London or Monaco, men who'd spent years killing with impunity were about to discover that Kennedy Washington's body surfacing had started a chain of events that would destroy everything they'd built. April 15, 2024, arrived with the task force investigation hitting walls everywhere. Fake Instagram accounts led to VPN dead ends. Yacht company connections dissolved into shell corporations. Witness interviews provided motive but no actionable leads on perpetrators. Then at 2:47 p.m. Dubai time, an email arrived in UAE State Security's general tip line that would crack the case wide open. Subject line: I have information about the Yacht murders. The sender used encrypted Proton mail routed through multiple proxy servers. The message: I worked for them. I was on a crew on the yachts where they killed the women. I saw everything. I couldn't stop it then, but I want to stop them now. I have evidence, videos, names, locations, everything you need to arrest everyone involved. But I need guarantees. I need immunity from prosecution and witness protection. Within 30 minutes, it was on Colonel al-Mansouri's desk. The task force's initial reaction was deep skepticism, mixed with desperate hope. Colonel al-Mansouri convened an emergency meeting. They needed verification before making promises. At 6:15 p.m. Dubai time, a response was sent. We are interested but require verification. Please provide details about the crimes that have not been released to the public. The response came back within 45 minutes. The informant provided exact GPS coordinates where Kennedy's body had been thrown overboard: 25 N, 56 22E, coordinates matching drift calculations but never released publicly. He described the yacht's interior layout, including soundproofed lower deck cabin, furniture configuration, camera mount locations, details matching forensic evidence. Most convincingly, he provided names of 3 victims whose identities had been confirmed through DNA but deliberately withheld from public disclosure: Maria Santos from São Paulo, Katerina Bondar from Kyiv, and Chen Wei from Manila. No one outside the organization could know those names. Credibility established, negotiation began April 16th and stretched 48 hours. The informant's demands were non-negotiable: complete immunity except for direct participation in murder, full witness protection with relocation outside Middle East and Russia, new identity and financial support, 24/7 armed protection, and confidentiality regarding identity until court appearance. Legal teams from UAE, United States, and other countries worked around the clock. On April 18th at 11 a.m., the final agreement was signed and the informant's identity revealed: Dmitry Volkov, 34, Russian national, employed as yacht crew March 2022 through March 2024, present for an estimated 15 to 20 yacht parties, witness to horrors that had finally broken his ability to remain complicit. The meeting took place April 18th at a secure facility within UAE State Security Headquarters. When Dmitry Volkov walked in, Colonel al-Mansouri saw a man who looked like he hadn't slept properly in weeks: lean to gaunt, light brown hair, pale skin, haunted eyes. He sat down and said his first words in English with a heavy Russian accent. I want to be very clear. I am not a good man. I worked for monsters. I helped them. I cleaned up after they killed women. I lied to police in other countries when bodies were found. I am telling you this not because I suddenly developed a conscience, but because I have a daughter and she is 8 years old, and I realize that in 10 years she will be the same age as the women I watched die. I cannot live with that. So I am here to help you destroy these men, and then I will live with what I did for the rest of my life. The interview began. 14 hours of testimony spread across 2 days. Dmitry's testimony painted a picture of wealthy men who'd turned murder into a hobby. The leader, known only as the Collector, remained anonymous even to most members, communicating through encrypted channels. Dmitry described him as an Arab male, approximately 50 to 55, extremely wealthy, educated in Western universities, absolutely convinced of the righteousness of what they were doing. The core group consisted of 22 men: real estate developers owning buildings in Dubai and London, hedge fund managers moving billions, tech entrepreneurs who'd sold companies for hundreds of millions, one member of a royal family from a smaller Gulf state, inheritors of generational wealth. Nationalities included Emirati, Saudi, Kuwaiti, British, American, French, Russian, and Swiss citizens, all connected by extreme wealth and shared ideology that women they deemed immoral deserved death. Support staff numbered 15 to 20, yacht crew, drivers, pilots, cleaners specializing in crime scene sanitation, tech specialists managing fake social media accounts. Dmitry earned approximately $15,000 per month, money he sent to his ex-wife and daughter in St. Petersburg. The organization had been operating since at least 2019, conducting yacht parties approximately twice per month during peak season March through October. Simple mathematics suggested a minimum 40 to 60 victims over 5 years. The ideology uniting core members was documented in the manifesto. Members styled themselves as moral enforcers, performing necessary service by eliminating women they viewed as parasitic. Their target selection focused on women they labeled gold diggers, cheaters, social climbers, frauds. They documented everything, every assault, every murder, creating extensive video archives serving multiple purposes, ensuring member loyalty through mutual assured destruction, entertainment content, and what they viewed as educational material. The videos were traded, discussed, and celebrated as trophies. The methods reflected years of refinement. Elaborate social media personas took months to construct, stealing photographs, purchasing follower counts, obtaining fraudulent verification badges, creating authentic-looking posting histories. Victims were groomed over weeks. Invitation to yachts in international waters was crucial because territorial jurisdiction becomes murky beyond 12 nautical miles. Chemical incapacitation using GHB, rohypnol, and ketamine was standard protocol. Systematic assault by multiple members was part of the ritual. Bodies were wrapped in industrial canvas, weighted with marine-grade weights disposed of in deep water. Electronic footprint erasure was executed immediately after each murder. The evidence Dmitry provided April 18th exceeded every investigator's most optimistic expectations. From his jacket, Dmitry produced a USB drive encrypted with the password he provided after signing an immunity agreement, containing 137 files, the complete digital record. Files included videos of assaults and murders from multiple camera angles, including Kennedy Washington's final hours, photos documenting aftermath. Documents included internal communications, member lists with real names and photographs, financial records, partial manifesto, dates and locations for 31 separate yacht parties with GPS coordinates and victim information, bank account information exposing money laundering operations, encrypted messaging logs showing conversations planning operations, discussing victims, celebrating murders. Verification began immediately. 23 matches were found within the first 6 hours, dates and locations aligning perfectly with disappearances, GPS coordinates matching drift calculations, victim descriptions matching unidentified bodies. Colonel Al-Mansouri ordered mandatory counseling for anyone reviewing video files. The decision was made April 20th after 48 hours of verification. They had everything needed for coordinated international arrests. They knew who the perpetrators were, where they lived, what they'd done. The only question was timing. Colonel Al-Mansouri set the date for May 3, 2024, exactly 13 days away. Dmitry Volkov was moved to a safe house under 24-hour guard. Somewhere in Dubai and London and Monaco and other cities, 22 wealthy men continued their normal lives completely unaware that their crimes had been exposed, their identities known, and their freedom about to end permanently. Kennedy Washington's murder had been their mistake, not because she was different from their other victims, but because her body had surfaced when it shouldn't have, triggering an investigation that finally had the evidence and political will to bring down predators who'd believed themselves untouchable. Justice was coming, and it wore the face of every woman they'd killed. The 8 days between April 25th and May 2nd, 2024, represented the most intensive international law enforcement coordination in recent memory, with 47 agencies across 8 countries working toward a single synchronized goal. The simultaneous arrest of 40 men who'd spent years believing their wealth made them immune to justice. The operation was officially designated Operation Pearl. Colonel Ahmed al-Mansouri moved into Dubai Police Headquarters Command Center for the duration. Special Agent Carmen Rodriguez coordinated the American side from FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C., her days starting at 2 a.m. to align with Dubai business hours. The targets represented wealth that typically shields people from consequences, with combined assets exceeding $3 billion, connections to royal families and government officials. The target list of 22 core members read like a Forbes list of international wealthy elite. The UAE accounted for 8 targets, including the primary target, Omar al-Khalidi, 52, Emirati national, billionaire real estate developer whose properties dominated Dubai's skyline, married father of 4 living in a Palm Jumeirah penthouse valued at $47 million, the man known as the Collector, the architect and leader of 5 years of systematic murder. The UK held 4 targets. Monaco's 2 targets were casino regulars. Saudi Arabia presented the most diplomatically sensitive targets with 3 arrests planned, one involving a distant member of the royal family. Switzerland held 2 targets, private wealth managers whose financial expertise had been crucial to money laundering. Russia represented the most problematic target, a single oligarch with Kremlin ties. The challenges facing Operation Pearl were significant. 2 targets had legitimate claims to diplomatic immunity. Political connections ran deep for several targets. Flight risk was perhaps the most pressing concern because every target had access to private jets, owned properties in multiple countries, and could disappear to non-extradition havens within hours. The strategy: simultaneous raids across all time zones within a 3-hour window, striking at dawn in each location, overwhelming force to prevent resistance, immediate seizure of electronic devices and documents. The date was set for May 3, 2024, a Friday when wealthy businessmen might be more likely to be in residence. The synchronization required split-second timing because the moment the first arrest happened, the risk increased that remaining targets might be warned. On the evening of May 2, more than 300 law enforcement officers across 8 countries received their final briefings. May 3, 2024 arrived in Dubai with perfect weather, and at exactly 6:03 a.m., 20 UAE state security officers, supported by Dubai police tactical units, breached Omar al-Khalidi's Palm Jumeirah penthouse. The Collector was in his bedroom, attempting to destroy his mobile phone by smashing it against his marble bathroom counter when officers reached him. The arresting officer, Lieutenant Rashid al-Hakim, would later testify that Omar's first words after being handcuffed were not a protest of innocence, but a threat. "Do you know who I am? Do you understand what arresting me will cost you?" Lieutenant al-Hakim's response captured on body camera. "Yes, Mr. al-Khalidi, you are a serial killer who murdered more than 50 women, and arresting you will cost me nothing, but will cost you the rest of your life." Omar's face went white as he realized his carefully constructed life was collapsing. The Dubai raids continued with military precision. 5 additional targets arrested within 15 minutes. By 6:25 a.m. Dubai time, the UAE had secured 8 targets with 0 escapes. At 6:22 a.m. London time, 3 hours behind Dubai, UK National Crime Agency tactical teams executed raids at 3 locations simultaneously. James Crawford Smith, 45, was arrested at his Mayfair apartment. Viktor Fedorov, 51, attempted to barricade himself in his Knightsbridge penthouse and had to be extracted by tactical teams. Edmund Price, 62, was found at his Manchester estate where he'd taken sleeping pills in an apparent suicide attempt. Paramedics transported him to hospital under armed guard. Monaco's raids at 6:45 a.m. were complicated by the fact that both targets were at Monte Carlo Casino. French special forces surrounded the casino, evacuated patrons, and arrested Michel Fontaine and Stefan Hoffmann. The casino arrest generated immediate headlines because wealthy patrons filmed portions on their phones, creating the first public awareness that something massive was unfolding. Saudi Arabia's arrests at 7:10 a.m. Riyadh time proceeded smoothly after the Saudi king personally approved. Switzerland's Geneva arrest at 7:30 a.m. occurred at a private bank where Hans Meller had come in early hoping to move assets. The U.S. operation came last, synchronized to occur at 8:15 a.m. New York time. FBI tactical teams arrested Bradley Ashford, 47-year-old hedge fund CEO, as he stepped off the elevator on the 42nd floor. Paris completed the arrest operation at 8:45 a.m. By 9 a.m. Dubai time, exactly 3 hours after the first breach, Operation Pearl had successfully arrested 39 of 40 targets. The 3 escapees represented the operation's only significant failures. The Russian target had fled to Belarus hours before the planned arrest. One support staff member had vanished days before. One core member was discovered to be traveling in China. Despite these 3 escapes, Operation Pearl's 90+% success rate exceeded projections. The evidence seizure was methodical and comprehensive. 47 computers and 82 mobile devices were seized. Financial investigators traced $890 million in assets. Physical evidence included clothing and jewelry matching missing persons reports. Chemical supplies found included industrial quantities of GHB, rohypnol, and ketamine. The video archive discovered on encrypted servers in Omar's home office contained 1,847 files documenting assaults and murders. The written manifesto found in multiple defendants' possession was perhaps the most damning evidence. The victim database on Omar's computer contained names, photographs, and dates for 58 women the organization had killed over 5 years. The international headlines that exploded within hours captured both the scope of crimes and public horror. Billionaire murder ring exposed. 58 women dead in Gulf waters, read the New York Times. Within 72 hours, Operation Pearl had become the most discussed criminal case globally. T.J. Brooks, watching news coverage from his Atlanta apartment, felt relief that justice was being served, and devastation that justice required Kennedy being dead. Operation Pearl was a triumph of international law enforcement cooperation, demonstration that even billionaires face justice when crimes are exposed, and absolute proof that Kennedy Washington's murder would not be forgotten. But for the people who'd loved her, the arrests were just the beginning of a much longer process of grief and recovery. The decision to try all defendants in UAE federal court, rather than extraditing them to their home countries, was made after weeks of diplomatic negotiation and legal analysis concluding Dubai had the strongest jurisdictional claim since the majority of murders occurred in UAE territorial waters. The venue selection was announced June 15, 2024, both practical choice and symbolic statement. The UAE government wanted to demonstrate that crimes committed within their borders would be punished under their laws, regardless of perpetrators' wealth or nationality. The charges filed against each defendant were staggering, multiple counts of first-degree murder with exact numbers varying by defendant, but every core member facing at least 11 murder counts, and some facing as many as 37. Multiple counts of aggravated sexual assault, kidnapping, conspiracy to commit murder, human trafficking, drug trafficking, and money laundering. Omar al-Khalidi, as the collector and organizational leader, faced every possible charge for every victim the organization had killed, a charging document that ran to 347 pages. The trial date was set for September 15, 2024, allowing 5 months for preparation. The prosecution team assembled represented unprecedented international cooperation, 23 attorneys from 8 countries working together under UAE Chief Prosecutor Hamad al-Shamsi. Defense challenges began immediately with hundreds of pretrial motions attempting to suppress evidence, dismiss charges, separate trials, or delay proceedings. Claims of false evidence were made regarding Dmitry Volkov's testimony. Claims of coercion were filed regarding confessions. Claims of mistaken identity were attempted by several defendants. Every motion was heard, considered, and ultimately denied, with the UAE federal court judge ruling that evidence was overwhelming, properly obtained, and admissible in its entirety. The testimony phase stretched from September 2024 through December 2024, with the prosecution calling 147 witnesses. Dmitry Volkov spent 6 days on the witness stand, testifying from behind a screen protecting his identity. His testimony was devastating in detail, methodically walking through his employment, his presence at 15 yacht parties, his first-hand knowledge of how victims were selected and lured and drugged and killed. Defense. Attorneys attacked his credibility relentlessly, but Dimitri's testimony was corroborated by physical evidence at every point. Cross-examination lasted 3 days and failed to shake any significant portion of his testimony. Forensic experts provided scientific foundation, transforming Dimitri's eyewitness testimony into irrefutable proof. DNA analysts explained how genetic material recovered from victims' bodies had been matched to specific defendants. Dr. Fatima al-Rashid testified for 2 days about injuries documented on Kennedy and other recovered victims, describing in clinical detail the torture these women had endured. Toxicologists explained drug combinations found in victims' tissue samples. Digital forensics experts walked the jury through Instagram message histories, showing how fake accounts had been created and used to groom victims. Every piece of scientific evidence supported the prosecution's narrative that these men had systematically hunted, lured, drugged, tortured, and murdered dozens of women over 5 years. The family testimony in October 2024 transformed the trial from abstract legal proceeding into human tragedy. T.J. Brooks testified October 23rd, the first time he'd been in the same room with Omar al-Khalidi and other defendants who'd participated in Kennedy's murder. He wore a suit he'd bought for the wedding that would never happen, walked to the witness stand with Kennedy's engagement ring on a chain around his neck. His testimony focused on Kennedy's life before she met these men, her dreams, ambitions, struggles with debt and pressure, her decision to go to Dubai, and the lies she'd told. TJ's voice broke multiple times describing their last conversation at the airport. When asked what he wanted the court to know about Kennedy, TJ looked directly at Omar al-Khalidi. She made terrible choices. She lied to me. She was going to betray me for money, but she was still a human being who deserved to live. You didn't kill her because of what she did. You killed her because you could, because you thought you were entitled to judge her and execute her. You're not judges. You're just murderers. And I hope you spend every single day for the rest of your lives thinking about every single woman you killed and knowing that their lives mattered more than your money ever will. Patricia and Dennis Washington testified the following day. Patricia brought photographs: Kennedy as a little girl, high school graduation, college acceptance letter. She told the court about raising Kennedy, working double shifts so Kennedy could have opportunities. Patricia's testimony was interrupted multiple times by crying she couldn't control. Dennis Washington's testimony was shorter and quieter. You killed my daughter because you thought she was greedy and dishonest. Maybe she was, but you're a monster who killed 58 women because you enjoyed it and called it morality. When they execute you, and I pray to God they do, the world will be better for your absence. The same can't be said if my daughter had lived. The courtroom sat in absolute silence after Dennis spoke. The video evidence shown to the jury in closed court sessions during November 2024 was the final piece eliminating any possibility of acquittal. The judge ruled selected portions would be shown in closed proceedings with media and public excluded. The viewing sessions lasted 4 days. The video of Kennedy Washington's assault and murder was shown November 18th. TJ was offered the opportunity to attend but declined. The jury's reaction was visible even through professional composure. Some openly wept, others looked physically ill. Several stared at defendants with expressions of pure disgust. The verdict came January 12, 2025, after 3 days of jury deliberation. When the jury foreman stood to read verdicts at 2 p.m. Dubai time, the courtroom was packed with victims' families, international media, and a global television audience estimated at over 100 million watching via live stream. The verdicts were read defendant by defendant, charge by charge, a process that took nearly 3 hours. Every single verdict for every single core member was the same: guilty. Guilty of first-degree murder on all counts. Guilty of aggravated sexual assault on all counts. Guilty of kidnapping on all counts. Guilty of conspiracy. Guilty of human trafficking. Guilty of drug trafficking. Guilty of money laundering. 22 men, guilty of everything. When the final guilty verdict was read, families erupted in applause that the judge allowed to continue for a full minute. TJ sat with his head in his hands and cried for the first time since Kennedy's funeral, not from joy but from exhausted relief. Sentencing came 8 days later, January 20th, 2025. Omar al-Khalidi received the death penalty under UAE law. 18 core members received life imprisonment without possibility of parole. 3 core members who'd participated in fewer murders received sentences ranging from 40 to 50 years. Support staff members convicted of conspiracy received sentences between 15 and 25 years. The asset seizure ordered totaled $890 million, funds that would be distributed to victims' families. Each identified victim's family would receive approximately $15 million. The aftermath brought concrete changes. The UAE tightened yacht rental regulations, increased Coast Guard patrols, and implemented reporting requirements. Meta announced a complete overhaul of verification protocols, AI monitoring systems to detect grooming patterns. Interpol created a specialized database for tracking missing persons in luxury travel contexts. 12 countries launched prevention education campaigns targeting young women active on social media. Dmitry Volkov disappeared into witness protection in an undisclosed Scandinavian country. The 3 escapees remained subjects of international manhunts. The trial of 22 billionaires for the murders of 58 women ended with justice served and precedents set, and families finding what closure verdicts and sentences could provide. But for T.J. Brooks sitting in a Dubai courtroom and then flying home to Atlanta with an empty seat beside him, justice felt like the bare minimum and nothing like healing. Kennedy was still dead. The wedding was still canceled. The future was still destroyed. The guilty verdicts meant her killers would suffer, but they didn't mean T.J. would stop suffering too. Justice was important. Justice was necessary. Justice was everything the legal system could provide. But justice wasn't resurrection, and that was the only outcome that would have truly mattered to the man who'd loved Kennedy Washington since they were teenagers, and who'd lost her to predators who'd convinced her that luxury was worth dying for. March 29, 2024, at 3 a.m. Atlanta time would forever exist in Terrence Brooks's memory as the moment his life split into before and after, when Special Agent Carmen Rodriguez spoke words that transformed Kennedy from missing to murdered, and TJ from fiancé to survivor of a trauma he'd never fully escape. The initial response was denial so complete that for several minutes he genuinely couldn't process what Agent Rodriguez was telling him. The denial gave way to shock that manifested as numbness spreading through his limbs, chest feeling hollow and cold, vision narrowing. He remembered collapsing, remembered Kennedy's mother fainting, remembered sounds coming from his own throat that didn't sound human. But the memories existed behind glass, distant and distorted. The numbness lasted through that night and into the following day, TJ moving through necessary tasks with robotic efficiency. The questions began March 30th when the numbness wore off. Why did she lie to him? The Arizona retreat story had been so detailed, so carefully constructed. Who was she really if she could lie that smoothly to someone she'd been with for 6 years? Could he have prevented this if he'd been more successful financially? If he'd been able to afford the wedding Kennedy wanted? The guilt ate at TJ because, logically, he knew he wasn't responsible for Kennedy's choices. But emotionally, he couldn't stop thinking that maybe if he'd been a better provider, Kennedy would still be alive. The discovery of the full arrangement, learning Kennedy had been communicating with the fake sheikh for weeks, that she'd agreed to a companionship arrangement for $12,000 monthly, added layers of betrayal to grief. The emotional phases TJ cycled through between April and September 2024 didn't follow neat progression, but crashed over him in waves that could shift within minutes. Grief for the woman he loved hit hardest in unexpected moments. Walking past her favorite coffee shop, hearing a song she'd played constantly, seeing couples holding hands. The grief was physical pain in his chest that made breathing difficult. Anger at her choices would surge when TJ thought about the lies, about how she'd looked him in the eye and told him she loved him while planning to betray him for money. The anger felt wrong because you're not supposed to be angry at murder victims. But TJ couldn't help feeling furious that Kennedy had put herself in that situation. The guilt of feeling angry at a dead woman then made him hate himself. Questioning 6 years together became TJ's obsession. Had she ever really loved him? When she'd said yes to his proposal, had she meant it? Were any of their happy memories real, or had Kennedy been performing the whole time? TJ drove himself nearly crazy with these questions because Kennedy was dead and couldn't answer them. The rage at the killers provided the only emotion that felt clean and uncomplicated. TJ hated Omar al-Khalidi and the other men with intensity he'd never experienced. The hatred was pure and righteous and gave him focus when grief threatened to drown him. The trial experience in September and October 2024 required TJ to travel to Dubai for the first time, flying the same route Kennedy had flown, arriving in the same airport where she'd met the driver who'd taken her to her death. Testifying October 23rd forced TJ to stand in front of the men who'd killed Kennedy. His testimony included the statement quoted worldwide. She was flawed, but she didn't deserve this. No one deserves this. Making eye contact with Omar al-Khalidi while testifying was surreal. The video evidence was something prosecutors tried to spare TJ from viewing, but TJ insisted because he felt he owed it to Kennedy to witness what she'd endured. Watching Kennedy's final moments. November 18, 2024, in a closed courtroom, was the single most traumatic experience of TJ's life. The video was 47 minutes of Kennedy being drugged and assaulted and tortured, and TJ watched all of it because turning away felt like abandoning her again. The image of Kennedy's face when she realized she was going to die, the way she'd whispered his name in her last moments, those images burned into TJ's memory in ways no therapy would ever fully erase. He broke down completely when the video ended. His statement during testimony the day after came from emotional exhaustion and absolute clarity. She made terrible choices, but they took everything from her. They took her future, her chance to grow, to change. We all make mistakes. She deserved the chance to learn from hers. They stole that chance. They stole her entire life. Nothing justifies that. Life after the verdict. January 12, 2025 brought the justice TJ had needed, but not the peace he'd hoped for. His reflection became something he'd repeat in interviews. Justice doesn't heal, it just stops the bleeding. Kennedy's still gone. I still wake up every morning in a world without her. The verdict means her killers will suffer consequences, and that matters. But it doesn't bring her back or fix what they broke in me. TJ's career in tech engineering ended in April 2024 when he stopped going to work. By June 2024, TJ had made the decision to transform his grief into purpose by starting a victim advocacy nonprofit focused on preventing what had happened to Kennedy. The organization's name, Kennedy's Voice, was chosen because Kennedy could no longer speak for herself, but her story could speak to other young women. TJ used his $15 million settlement from the asset seizure to fund the nonprofit's first 5 years, donating 28 of the $30 million because keeping money that came from Kennedy's death felt wrong. Relationships became impossible for TJ, his ability to trust fundamentally broken by the combination of Kennedy's lies and her murder. He tried going on one date in June 2025 and spent the entire dinner comparing the woman to Kennedy, wondering what she might be lying about, feeling panic rising until he'd apologized and left early. After that failed attempt, TJ accepted that he might be celibate for the rest of his life. Therapy became a twice-weekly necessity starting April 2024. The PTSD diagnosis came quickly. Nightmares about Kennedy's death. Panic attacks triggered by airports or boats or seeing women who looked like Kennedy. The therapy helped make symptoms manageable, but never made them disappear. Current status as of November 2025, 19 months after Kennedy's death, found TJ at age 30, living in the same Atlanta apartment where he and Kennedy had spent so many evenings planning a future that would never happen. Kennedy's Voice had grown into a functioning nonprofit with 15 full-time employees and 40 volunteers, operating programs in 23 states focused on educating young women about online predators, financial pressure, and dangers of luxury travel arrangements with strangers. TJ had become an unexpectedly effective public speaker, his authenticity and obvious pain making audiences listen. He'd spoken at over 200 schools, universities, and churches in 18 months, reaching an estimated 50,000 young women with Kennedy's story. His message never sugarcoated Kennedy's choices or painted her as a perfect victim. He told the truth about the lies, the arrangement, the decisions that had led to that yacht. but he contextualized those choices within financial pressures and social media culture. TJ's personal life remained deliberately empty, celibate by choice because intimacy felt like betrayal of Kennedy's memory. His apartment was a shrine to Kennedy, her photos on walls, her favorite coffee mug he couldn't throw away, the engagement ring he wore on a chain under his shirt. His concluding thought in interviews, the way he always ended public presentations. I remember the girl I met at 17, before Instagram, before the pressure to look successful, before she started believing that money equaled worth. That Kennedy was kind and ambitious and full of dreams that didn't involve yachts or sheiks or anything except maybe having enough. I wish that Kennedy had lived long enough to learn that enough was plenty. I wish I'd been able to give her enough that she never felt desperate. I wish for a lot of things. But wishes don't change reality. Reality is that Kennedy died chasing luxury that wasn't real, and if telling her story prevents even one other young woman from making the same choice, then maybe her death means something beyond just tragedy. Maybe Kennedy's voice, even in silence, can save lives she never got to live. T.J. Brooks was 30 years old, would never marry Kennedy Washington, would never have the children they'd talked about, or the boring, beautiful, ordinary future they'd planned. But he'd built something from the ruins of that future. Had transformed his grief into purpose, and his rage into prevention. Justice had been served, and the killers were imprisoned or executed. But TJ understood that healing wasn't about moving on or letting go or finding closure. Healing was about learning to carry Kennedy's memory without being crushed by it, about building a life that honored what they'd had while acknowledging what she'd done, about accepting that love and anger and grief could all be true simultaneously. He would live with this forever, would wake up every morning and choose to get out of bed and do the work, because the alternative was letting Kennedy's death be meaningless. And TJ refused to give Omar al-Khalidi and the other killers that victory. They'd taken Kennedy's life, but they hadn't taken TJ's purpose. And in that purpose, Kennedy Washington would continue speaking long after the men who'd silenced her had been forgotten. The funeral on May 15, 2024 carried additional weight because it was the date Kennedy and TJ had chosen for their wedding. The ceremony at Greater Hope Baptist Church drew more than 600 people. TJ sat in the front row wearing the same suit he'd bought for the wedding, Kennedy's engagement ring on a chain around his neck. The eulogy was delivered by the church's pastor. Kennedy Washington was not perfect. She made choices we might not understand or approve of. But she was also kind, ambitious, full of dreams. She was a whole person, complex and flawed and human. And she deserved to live. What happened to her was not justice for her choices. It was murder by men who believed they had the right to judge and execute her. The burial at Oakland Cemetery placed Kennedy next to her grandmother, the gravestone bearing the inscription, Kennedy Simone Washington, 1996 to 2024, beloved daughter, sister, and friend, her voice lives on. Patricia and Dennis became advocates for young women facing similar financial desperation. They partnered with Kennedy's voice. Patricia's message was consistent. My daughter died because she believed money equaled worth, because social media showed her lives she could never afford, because she felt pressure to have a perfect wedding rather than a real marriage. We as a society created the conditions that made Kennedy vulnerable to predators. Yes, she made bad choices, but let's talk about why those choices seemed necessary to her. We can't bring her back, but we can change the world that killed her. The 10 other identified victims' families who participated in the trial represented an international community of grief. The countries included Kenya, Ghana, Brazil, the Philippines, Romania, Ukraine, and Colombia. The shared narrative was remarkably consistent. She was ambitious, but kind. She wanted more than we could give her. We never imagined she'd been murdered. The common regret was haunting. We didn't see the warning signs. Parents described daughters who'd been secretive about online contacts, who'd lied about travel plans, who'd shown signs of financial desperation but hidden the extent. The support network that formed represented one positive outcome. An international support group called Families United for Justice was established in February 2025, with Patricia Washington and Maria Santos's mother, Teresa, as co-founders. The annual memorial, established for January 12th, brought families together virtually each year. The first memorial in 2026 included 58 candles lit simultaneously, each representing a woman murdered by the organization. The Washington family's journey through grief was ongoing, as of November 2025, with no endpoint visible, because there is no endpoint to losing a child. Patricia had returned to teaching, but found herself crying unexpectedly. Dennis had retired early because he couldn't focus when his mind kept replaying Kennedy's childhood. The siblings were scattered, Jasmine in Detroit working as a nurse, Devin in Atlanta working with Kennedy's voice, Maya taking time off school. The family gathered for Kennedy's birthday each year at Oakland Cemetery. They would carry Kennedy with them for the rest of their lives, would never stop wishing she'd made different choices, would never stop loving her. And they would continue speaking her name publicly and telling her story honestly, because silence protected predators, and truth was the only path to preventing Kennedy's tragedy from repeating itself. Kennedy Washington's murder and the subsequent trial sparked conversations across the globe, touching on fundamental questions about social media culture, economic inequality, gender dynamics, and the nature of victimhood in cases where the victim's choices complicate the narrative of innocence. The social media dangers exposed became impossible to ignore when the public learned that verification badges could be purchased fraudulently for $3,500 and that Instagram profiles with millions of followers could be entirely fake, built on bot networks. The revelation forced a broader reckoning with how social media platforms had created systems that predators could exploit. Financial pressure on young women became a topic of national debate when commentators pointed out that Kennedy had accumulated $67,000 in student loan debt and $23,000 in credit card debt while earning $42,000 annually. A financial reality that made a $75,000 wedding seem impossible and made a $12,000 monthly allowance seem like a rational solution rather than a dangerous trap. The victim, blaming that erupted, revealed deep cultural divides about who deserves sympathy and protection, with one camp arguing Kennedy bore some responsibility for her choices, while another camp insisted that murder is never justified, regardless of the victim's choices. The debate played out across social media platforms, in newspaper opinion sections, on cable news panels, forcing people to examine their own assumptions about morality, consequences, and the limits of compassion. The debate broke down along predictable ideological lines. The conservative perspective focused on personal responsibility. Kennedy Washington made immoral choices. While murder is always wrong, we cannot ignore that she put herself in a dangerous situation through decisions she made voluntarily. The progressive perspective contextualized Kennedy's choices within systems of inequality. Kennedy Washington was failed by a society that tells young women they're worthless without wealth, that loads them with unpayable student debt. She died because poverty creates vulnerability that predators exploit. The feminist perspective offered perhaps the most nuanced analysis. Patriarchy demands that women secure resources through relationships with men because women are paid less and have fewer paths to independent wealth. Society tells women that marrying up is smart, that transactional relationships have always existed, and then when women like Kennedy pursue exactly what patriarchy prescribes, financial security through men, society punishes them as gold diggers. These killers believed they had the right to judge and execute women for the very behavior that patriarchal society encourages. Religious perspectives varied dramatically. Conservative Christian voices argued Kennedy's choices violated biblical teachings, while progressive Christian voices countered that Jesus consistently showed compassion to women society judged harshly. Islamic scholars condemned both Kennedy's arrangement and her murder. The legal perspective cut through the moral complexity with clarity. Murder is never justified. Full stop. Kennedy Washington's choices are irrelevant to whether her killers should be convicted and punished. The law doesn't recognize a defense of she deserved it or she made bad choices. Murder is murder. Media coverage reached saturation levels, with front-page coverage in 45 countries. Netflix announced they were producing a documentary called The Yacht Conspiracy. The New York Times ran a 10-part investigative series on luxury travel dangers. Social media hashtags, including Yacht Justice for Kennedy, trended globally for weeks. Podcast series proliferated, with at least 20 different shows producing multi-episode investigations. Book deals came quickly, with 3 major publications hitting shelves by late 2025. Educational materials based on Kennedy's case appeared in criminology courses worldwide by 2026. Law schools used the case to examine extradition protocols. Prevention initiatives represented perhaps the most concrete positive outcome. Tech companies, particularly Meta, announced sweeping changes to verification protocols in March 2025, including requiring government-issued ID and video verification. AI-powered monitoring systems were implemented to detect grooming patterns. Governments launched travel safety campaigns targeting young women traveling to meet online contacts. NGOs, including Kennedy's Voice, created financial literacy programs, teaching budgeting and debt management. Schools expanded digital safety curriculum to include modules on social media dangers and recognizing predatory behavior. Law enforcement agencies internationally improved cooperation protocols based on lessons learned from Operation Pearl. Kennedy Washington's death had been a tragedy that never should have happened, but the response, the conversations it sparked, the debates it forced, the changes it catalyzed, represented society's attempt to ensure that her death would mean something beyond just loss. That future young women might be safer because Kennedy's story had been told honestly and the lessons had been learned. Whether those changes would be sufficient to prevent the next Kennedy Washington remained to be seen, but the attempt itself was the minimum society owed to a woman who died chasing dreams that social media made look achievable and predators made deadly. The unanswered questions that lingered long after verdicts were delivered represented the uncomfortable truth that even comprehensive investigations can't provide complete closure. How many more victims remain undiscovered beneath the waters of the Persian Gulf? Women whose bodies sank as intended and will never surface, whose families still wait for phone calls that will never come. Investigators believed the 58 confirmed victims represented a fraction of the true count, with estimates ranging as high as 100 or more women killed over a decade or longer. Are there other similar organizations operating right now, perhaps learning from Omar al-Khalidi's mistakes? The dark reality was that wealth combined with sadism and international coordination created opportunities for murder that were difficult to detect. Expert analysis attempted to contextualize Kennedy's case. Dr. Michael Torres, a criminologist at Georgetown. This organization killed for ideology and entertainment, not for money or power. They were wealthy men who didn't need to commit crimes to maintain their lifestyle. They chose murder as a hobby. Kennedy's case exposed one such organization, but the conditions that enabled it, extreme wealth inequality, social media creating visible vulnerable targets, international travel creating jurisdictional complications, those conditions persist and likely enable other groups we haven't discovered yet. Dr. Rebecca Martinez, a professor of ethics at Yale. Kennedy lied to her fiancé and was planning to cheat on him for money. Those are moral wrongs by most ethical frameworks, and it is simultaneously and completely true that murdering her was absolutely wrong, that nothing about her choices justified violence against her. We can hold both truths, that Kennedy made bad choices and that she was murdered by evil men. What we cannot do ethically is suggest that her murder was somehow her fault. Murder is an absolute moral wrong that doesn't become less wrong because the victim was imperfect. The final interview with T.J. Brooks took place in October 2024 at Kennedy's Voice nonprofit office. When asked to reflect on Kennedy, T.J. took a long moment. Kennedy wasn't perfect. Neither am I. She was human, flawed, pressured, desperate. She made terrible choices driven by a system that told her wealth equals worth. They made a choice too. They made a choice to be monsters. They chose to hunt vulnerable women. They chose to torture and kill. There's no comparison between Kennedy's bad decisions and their evil. None. On forgiveness. I forgive Kennedy for lying to me. She was desperate and scared. I wish she'd trusted me. I wish I'd been successful enough that she didn't feel desperate. But I forgive her because she's dead and because holding on to anger doesn't change anything. I'll never forgive them, though. Never. That's not very evolved of me, but it's honest. TJ's final message, delivered directly to the camera. To anyone watching this, no amount of money, no luxury experience, no shortcut is worth your life. You are valuable exactly as you are, right now. Don't let Instagram convince you that you need wealth to have worth. Kennedy believed those lies, and it killed her. Learn from her mistakes without judging her for making them. She was human. She was flawed. She deserved to live. And so do you. Choose life. Choose safety. Choose yourself. Every single time. On March 15, 2024, Kennedy Washington's life ended in the Persian Gulf, a victim of her own choices and monstrous evil. 22 men believed themselves judges, executioners. They were wrong. They were simply murderers. Kennedy's story is both cautionary tale and tragedy. She was 27 years old when she died, chasing dreams that weren't real. She deserved better. May her story save the lives she never got to live. In memory of Kennedy Simone Washington and the 57 other known victims, you deserved better. We will do better. The final frame displayed a quote from T.J. Brooks. Your life is irreplaceable. No amount of money is worth dying for. Choose safety, choose life, every time. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this. Your support helps us continue bringing important true crime stories to life.